Now we've got something happening. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, December 12th, 2013 meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District Board. And we'll open this by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance as led by Director Gould.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Metro Cable announcements. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro 14, on Metro Cable 14. Replay on Saturday, December 14th, 2013 at 1 p.m. and Monday, December 16th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at sacramentocable.tv. Public opportunity to discuss matters of interest within the jurisdiction, including items or not on the agenda, is provided. And and with that, do we have items for public comment?
I don't have anything for the consent calendar. I believe you do have someone for the public hearing on action item 1.
Oh, fine, thank you. Then we'll hold that until that time. Fine. Looking at the consent agenda.
I think you want to start with your awards.
Oh, I'm sorry. We want to go to the awards system, the awards presentation. So, moving on to the awards, Chief Hinkie.
Board of Directors, I'd like to take at this time the opportunity to invite up to the podium with me Doug Smith. Is Doug here? Terrific. As Doug makes his way up here, I'll tell you a story about some heroic actions that he did that one of our crews nominated him for this award. On July 12, 2013, Metro Fire Engine 101 and Medic 105 were dispatched to a single-family residence for a pediatric trauma injury. During the response, dispatch reported that CPR was in progress. Engine 101 arrived to find 2 people on the front lawn doing CPR on a child. Engine 101 took over CPR while obtaining information about what had happened to that child. An unknown adult stated that a large TV had fallen on the patient. During the investigation of the incident, it was learned that the male providing pediatric CPR, Doug Smith behind me, was an on-duty waste management worker that happened to be nearby when the patient was brought outside by the family. Unfortunately, despite his heroic efforts, the child did not survive. Captain Perryman of Metro Fire recommended the commendation because he believes that Mr. Smith went above and beyond and did not delay in assisting the family with pediatric CPR. So with that, do we have the crews in the audience that nominated them? Come on up. So this is Captain Perryman, who's the one that nominated you, Doug, for the award. And it is a great honor that I present It is with a great honor that I present Doug this certificate for life-saving commendation. This commendation is for extraordinary efforts to protect and preserve human life on July 12, 2013. There you go, sir. Next, I'd like to invite up here Dennis Svindarenko and Ruslan Kiselev. And if I mispronounce that, you can correct me later. Are you two here?
It doesn't look like it.
I guess not. Well, let me go ahead and read the background on these two individuals. On August 11th, 2013, Metro Fire Engine 358 responded to a motor vehicle accident on Latrobe Road in South Sacramento. While responding to the incident, Engine 358 reported a visible column of smoke to the other responding source resources. Upon Engine 358's arrival, they located a single vehicle off the roadway into a utility pole. The vehicle was on fire, threatening the passenger compartment. After further assessment of the scene, an additional 4 patients were located on the ground surrounding the vehicle. A trauma MCI was declared with 4 critical and 1 delayed patient. 1 patient was transported by helicopter to UCD, while the other patients were transported by ground units to local hospitals. It was during the investigative phase of the crash that Captain Hansen from Engine 358 learned that 2 citizens, Denis Svindarenko and Ruslan Kiselev, and I am so sorry I'm mispronouncing those. I'm very, very embarrassed about that, had come upon the vehicle accident prior to Engine 358's arrival. They immediately stopped and went to the vehicle that had hit the power pole. As the vehicle caught fire and began to burn, they noticed the female driver was trapped inside. They quickly bent the driver's door down to gain entry and used a pocket knife to cut her seatbelt. The female was then removed from the burning vehicle and placed in a safe area. The patient was critically injured with major chest trauma. Captain Hansen believes that due to the quick actions of these 2 individuals, the female driver's life was saved. It is with great honor that the Metro Fire presents to these 2 individuals a certificate of life-saving commendation. This commendation is for extraordinary efforts to protect and preserve human life on August 11, 2013. And if we give them a big round of applause, I will make sure that we get these certificates to them.
Thank you, Chief, and to each of the individuals, our congratulations and appreciation for all that you have done for our communities. So moving on then to the consent items.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion.
And I'll second, move consent calendar.
I have a motion and a second from Director Gould and Director Jones. Would the clerk call the roll?
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood. Aye. Scheidegger.
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Orzali.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Pearson.
Abstain.
Motion passes.
Moving on to item 2, purchase of a Ford service truck.
Mr. President, I believe at this point we're going to break into closed
Oh,
session.
excuse me, you're quite right. And we are going to break for closed session. And so with that, the board will go into closed session and we'll convene later on. Thank you.
Is our candy safe here? Mr. President? Will you assure?
Are you kidding me, man? You're asking. We bring the meeting back into open session. Council, would you report out on the closed session?
Yes, thank you, Director. The board considered 4 matters in closed session. The first was the workers' compensation claim of Michael Lozano in Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District. By a vote of 8-0 with Director Kelly absent, the board voted to approve to give council and the district's third-party administrator the approval to attempt to effectuate settlement of that workers' compensation claim. Next, the board considered the matter of Kevin Summers and the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District, the workers' compensation claim. By a vote to 8-0 with Director Kelly absent, voted to approve to give council and the third-party administrator authority to attempt to effectuate settlement of that workers' compensation claim. Next, the board considered the matter, the workers' compensation matter of Timothy Mabey and by a vote of 7-0 with Director Kelly absent and Director Gould abstaining, voted to approve to give council and the district's third-party administrator authority to attempt to effectuate settlement of the case. Finally, the board considered the matter of Doug Bine and the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District and took action to approve the workers' compensation claim of Mr. Bine by a vote of 8-0 with Director Kelly absent. There was also a discussion of the industrial disability retirement matter concerning Mr. Bine. No action was taken in closed session on that matter, and it is up for consideration in open section tonight as one of the action items for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. With that, we're moving into the action items, and so in item 1, I see that we have 2 people who have asked to address the board. Ms. Baxter, are you available?
Good evening, board members. My name is Suzanne Baxter. I'm a small business owner, and I understand that the department is recommending this evening that the self-inspection program be discontinued. I think it was hastily passed and difficult to administer. Approximately a third of the people that received the notices from the department paid for the self-inspection, and the majority of the people did not. I think that my question is on behalf of myself and other small business owners is for the few people that complied with the request under protest and feeling under pressure, is there a plan to refund the money? And if so, how would that process go?
I'll go ahead and address that. First off, my estimation is probably no, because we did conduct audits, which is part of the reason that we charge for the self-inspection program and part of the reason that we found that we had a high rate of non-compliance. And I've worked with Ms. Baxter. She came in and was one of the people that talked to me in the very, very beginning about the problems. And I think we're very upfront that there were problems with the program, and we heard the business community loud and clear. I don't have a firm answer on that, except at this point, my estimate would be no, but I will get with staff, and if I'm mistaken, part of the problem is my fire marshal's at Citrus Heights Council meeting tonight to present to them, and we've got somebody else in line that's going to present here on this issue. But I will find out and make sure that I get back to you no later than Monday or Tuesday of next week. And if you would leave Chief Cockrum, who's sitting right there at the corner, your contact information, we'll make sure that we get back in touch with you and follow up on this issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baxter. Also, we have Mr. Cahill.
Good evening. My name is Timothy F. Cahill. I'm a local attorney, and I'm also run a company that has commercial real estate in the Art and Arcade area. We've been in business for well over 60 years, and we have over 100 individual tenants, all of which are small businesses. And I wanted to talk with you about the reaction of this program that you instituted this last year, and also how it affects the proposed changes. In a word, the business people that I've talked to are outraged, just simply outraged. Not only the manner in which this program was introduced to the business owners, but also the fees charged were disrespectful and many believe exorbitant. Now, I've been told that you were required to do these inspections, but I have not found anything in the state codes or in the fire code that mandates periodic inspections of Group B and Group M occupancies. And as you know, Group B are offices, and Group M occupancies are mercantile. Regardless of that, The business owners are angry, and why shouldn't they? When the program was initiated, business owners received without warning a notice from Fire Recovery LLC that either they must self-inspect or have an inspector do an actual inspection, on-site inspection. Many came to me and said, "Is this a scam?" They hadn't heard of Fire Recovery LLC. I did some checking and found out, no, it wasn't. It was authorized by this board and by the fire district. Now, in that notice, it said you have to do, or you have a choice. You can do a self-inspection at $91 if you do it online, or $101 if you file a 2-page document with Fire Recovery LLC. And if you don't, an inspector will come and charge you $182 to do an inspection. Doing a little research, in late June of 2012, this board authorized the fire district to hire Fire Recovery LLC, and it was represented that the Fire Recovery LLC would charge the district $10.50 for each electronic submission and $20.50 for each paper submission. In other words, about an $80, the district would get approximately $80, a little less than that, for perhaps little or no work. It wasn't clear what the district was going to do. You know, to put this in perspective, every year a corporation has to send in a document to the state of California to say whether or not there's been any change in their corporate officers. They charge $25. So the small business people that I talk to were turning around and saying, why am I paying $91 or $101 to do a self-inspection? Why am I doing that? That wasn't clear. Okay, for those people that either threw away the document, and I was interested that the lady before, Mrs. Baxter, indicated a lot of people didn't do the inspection, but many of them threw it away because they thought it was a scam. For those people, inspectors came out and looked at their places. Now, I know you've had a Nexus study, and in that Nexus study, excuse me, it was determined that your hourly burden was approximately $187. You're charging $182 now, which is almost an hour's worth of time. Okay?
Mr. Cahill, Mr. President, if I may, I hear what you're saying. We normally have a 3-minute time limit, and so with the President's deference, I'd like to address, you've tilled a lot of ground there that...
Excuse me, I'd like to finish my presentation, and I'll be very brief.
Well-
All that I really wish to say is that the business community, the people that I've talked to where there have been inspections for only 5, maybe 10 minutes, are being charged either $182 or now you're talking about $114, and they don't get it. And what has happened is you've got a lot of very angry business people, and it doesn't help you folks out. You know, the business community has felt for the longest time that of all the public servants out there, the fire department and the firemen are really the greatest guys. You're held in great respect and esteem. But now there are people that are out there that don't want to see you, that are angry over this program and the inspectors that come out. And the inspectors, to their credit and to yours, have been universally respectful and professional. But what you're doing is you're shooting yourselves in the foot, and it's terrible.
Well, Mr. Cahill, I appreciate your comments sincerely, and I think the actions that are before the board tonight are evidence of us taking this very seriously.
Well, I'm sure that is the case, but even at $114 for a biannual inspection is excessive, especially when you're talking when inspectors come in and take 5 or 10 minutes. And when they come in, your inspectors are a lot more efficient, I think, than maybe given credit, because they come in, and I've watched them do this. They'll come in, they'll go to a business, they'll take 5, maybe 10 minutes, they'll go to the next door, do 5 or 10 minutes, they'll go to the next door. At 10 minutes, they can generate $1,820, or under this new proposal, $1,140 an hour. Now, cut that in half. That's almost $600.
If I can, Mr. President,
Absolutely.
what I would say is this. First off, talking about government, most government doesn't listen to the business community and to the constituents. They just go on about their business, but that's not this district. The program was a failure. The failure rests with me. It's my responsibility. And it was a failure. It didn't work. And the business community was concerned. And so over the last year, we have heard their concerns loud and clear about the self-inspection program and about the issues that were with it. And we went back to the drawing board. What we used to do was do inspections and subsidize because times were good and we had revenue. And we didn't have to do cost recovery. Unlike the state of California, who now has billions in profits and surpluses, we're still down $21 million a year on an annualized basis with 6 closed fire stations, a dozen or so employees laid off, massive pension reform that we did on our own, and massive concessions by labor to keep the engine companies open in the district. We no longer could go out and subsidize that. But in putting this program together, there's a legal methodology, which we're going to hear about here shortly, that justifies the legal amount that we can recover of cost, and it's regulated by the law. And I think you will see that when we do our presentation, we fall short of that. We have been criticized by other government agencies around us who said you should have been charging 100%. You're making us look bad. But we cut it down to the finest line that we could do to deliver that program. We have a great relationship with the business community. We're proud to belong to the Metro Chamber and the various chambers of commerce around here. I would be happy to sit down with you. I know that we've done stakeholder reach out to the different stakeholders. That's how we got to the point where we scrapped the program. And I remember Mrs. Baxter coming in loud and early, and she was right. There were businesses that were being charged. It was ridiculous. It was like a little teeny space within a space, or you had 2 people doing that. And we tried to correct a lot of those issues. We have new leadership. We have a new direction. The responsibility is mine, not the board of directors. It falls on me. It was my decision to implement the program. And so what I can tell you tonight is I give you my solemn promise that we are working as hard as we can to provide a solid program out there that provides the inspection. And last but not least, what should be noted is that when the inspectors go out and do the inspections, that isn't necessarily the end of them when you see them in your business for 15 or 20 minutes. There are follow-ups. We have tried to computerize our stuff, get the up-to-date methodology. You'll hear about it tonight to try to streamline that. But at the end of the day, you'll hear that we still are losing a large amount of money on our inspection program. And the reason we do our inspection programs is not to punish the businesses or the small business owner. It's because the bottom line is businesses catch on fire, people get hurt, and we lose property value and loss, and it has an economic impact on the economy. So we feel that it's important for our business community to get into those businesses, to find those hazards that might be there and work cooperatively with them. So with that, I would be happy to meet with you on the side and have staff meet with you. But I would ask for deference tonight and let us go ahead and put the presentation on, and I'd be happy to make an appointment with the staff to sit down and address any concerns that you might have.
Well, I'd be happy to do that, and I can appreciate some of the concerns that you have. But the information that you've provided to the small business community hasn't been very clear, unfortunately, and it still isn't. And in point of fact, on your website, you do have a statement that 70% of the businesses, large fires in businesses, end up with those businesses closing. And nationally, that may be true, but what's happening locally? What I would ask is, you know, how many office fires have you had in this district in the last year or 2 years or 5 years? How many retail fires have you had in the last year or 2 years or 3 years? And if you have that information, please put it on your website. And if you haven't asked for that information, how do you know, what signposts do you have to go ahead and judge the efficacy of this program? I'm not against inspections, but they've got to be reasonable, and they've got to be transparent, and you've got to be collaborative with the small business community, because frankly, the anger out there is palpable. I know one business owner that won't let you in unless you have a warrant, which is sad, because firemen and the fire district is what I said earlier, is the one governmental agency that has been held heretofore in great esteem and respect, and you don't want to lose that. Nobody wants that, and nobody wants a fire. So if there are no questions, thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, moving into item 1, Chief Daniels.
I would just say, in leading into that, Chief Daniels is at the Citrus Heights City
Oh,
Council
okay.
meeting tonight, presenting this same topic area. I know that we have done a lot of reach out. We are going to work on succession planning tonight. We're going to have Supervising Inspector Linda Barsdale, who is going to actually be doing the presentation. So she will be working with Deputy Chief Cockrum and laying out the program for you this evening.
Great, thank you, Chief.
Good evening, Director. Scott Cockrum, Deputy Chief of Support Services. Tonight we have a presentation for you and a staff report and presentation for your consideration for modification of the fire inspection program and fees charged by the Community Risk Reduction Division. Tonight we have a couple of presentations, one done by MBS, who went out and did our fee study for us, and then another by Supervising Inspector Lisa Barsdale. Now, I think by the end of this, by the time we go through the presentations, you're going to find that we've done a lot of work to make some good modifications to the program. And we have met with many members of the public out there, including Mr. Cahill with Mr. Nilo earlier in this spring this year on this exact topic here. Before we get too far in this, what I want to do is I'm going to ask our Council Lavra to kind of talk about, because this is a legal process, there's a few things that we need to get accomplished between now and actually if all adopted, this would take place in February, not until February. So tonight, there's some legal process that we go through again in January and again in February. If I can ask the council to please explain that process, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. What is going to basically happen is a consideration of amendment of one of the district's ordinances, its laws. So tonight you'll be hearing the presentation from Chief Cochran and others. And for your action item for tonight, you'll be voting on whether or not to approve the staff's recommendation to amend the fee schedule and to introduce the ordinance, which would be the new law which would set forth and effectuate the amendment of that fee ordinance. Then there would be a second vote on passing the ordinance. However, under the law, that doesn't take place tonight. That takes place after your vote if it's approved tonight, and the ordinance being out there as part of the record and being published, and is then voted upon at the next regular meeting to actually pass and have that ordinance be part of the laws of the district. So that's the way the process will go, will happen henceforth, and what you will be considering tonight.
Thank you, Council.
You're going to receive, I know in your packets you've already received quite a few documents on this, a lot of statistics and information. That's not going to get any better with after our presentations that we're going to provide. That's why I asked the General Counsel to kind of give you a feel for what the process is like. So, tonight you're going to receive a lot more information on what this looks like, and you'll have the opportunity to ask staff and us questions tonight. And then as time goes on, we'll be able to fulfill any questions that you have until the next board meeting and so on and so forth. So if I can, I'm going to bring up Nicole Kissam from MBS. She was the mathematician that put together all of our information for us, and she's got a presentation for you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Kassam. I'm the Director of Financial Consulting with NBS, and I'm here to just give you a little bit of background on how we approached the user and regulatory fee study for CRRD. So this will just be a brief presentation. Space bar to go? Okay. So what a fee study does is it defines the full cost recovery potential of individually based services. So we're here to define the maximum allowable amount that can be charged for any specific service. What we studied was the Community Risk Reduction Division's services. So that includes permits to operate under the California Fire Code, mandated inspections that are performed by the staff, required annual occupancy inspections such as the B and M inspections that were referred to in the public comment. Development plan check and construction inspection were sort of reviewed tangentially because they're part of the overall service package. And then there are some miscellaneous charges for services by the district that we also included. So this was a comprehensive study of fees and charges that fall under user and regulatory fee categories for the district. There is a difference between a user fee and a regulatory fee. A user fee is a charge imposed for a service provided or required due to the request or action of an individual or entity. It's a voluntary service, and a regulatory fee usually has some type of enabling legislation or requirement behind it that requires action of the district to regulate an activity. Overall, these are cost recovery opportunities. They're implemented by the board, and we're not talking at all tonight about fines, development impact fees, I think what you guys call the capital facilities fees. That's not what we're talking about tonight, and we're not talking about taxes. So these fees under various laws and regulations and sections of the government code, it's smattered all over the place inside of various codes. The foundational guiding light is basically that these need to be limited to the estimated and reasonable cost of providing the service for which the fee is charged. And what I've put up here are sort of the three main guiding lights that consultants like myself rely on when we do a study like this. Although we could go on for a long time about where in the Constitution and various sections of the government code these exact principles keep appearing and reappearing. So Proposition 218, even though user fees like this are exempt from that adoption process, there's a lot of principles in there that talk about equitability between receivers of services. So fundamentally, we need to be able to pair revenues received with the costs. We have sections of the Mitigation Fee Act that relate more to development fees, and in there it talks about the estimated and reasonable cost of providing plan check and inspection type services. And the most recent legislation is actually Proposition 26, and that just further defines the difference between a tax and a fee and how you go about fairness and equitability in assigning those charges. So the main data of any fee study is typically the adopted budget. So staffing levels and expenditures according to the adopted budget are what we've used as a basis. Also, Sacramento Metro Fire District has some tracked time available related to the services they provide, and we don't get that in every study, so that was very helpful that your staff is tracking how long it takes them to provide services. So we could use that actually as a basis in many cases. We also look at workload. We have many cross-checks in our analytical model to make sure that we're not structuring a fee schedule that will either vastly over-recover the cost of providing service or vastly under-recover. So that's a very critical component of our analysis. There's 4 main analytical sections of a study like this. We make sure that we get to know the organization through an organizational and service time analysis. We tie a value, a dollar value per hour, so we value the time on an hourly basis. We perform a cost of service analysis, which is where we actually come up with the maximum allowable fee amount for each individual service. And we also tackle any issues that are going on related to fee design. And those can be either issues that we notice when we look at your existing way of charging, or issues that are coming up from the community, or questions staff may have about, hey, could we structure this a little bit differently? So those are the 4 main areas. So regarding getting to know the organization, I think the most important aspect of that is that we are looking at how staff provide services on a couple different levels. One very important level is the actual time to provide a specific service. So you see this big arrow dropping down there that says for every service shown on the fee schedule, we've asked for an estimate or a tracked amount of time it takes on average to provide that service. But it's also important to note that we've looked at the entire division of community risk reduction. So we've also looked at types of services that are not recoverable in these user and regulatory fee services, and we've carved those out. So you see these other direct services here, we've carved those out and not tried to recover those in the charges for services. And then in any agency, we have the overhead component, and that can be for CRRD itself, and it can also be agency-wide. So we have looked at those costs as well and included them in the calculation of the maximum allowable recoverable cost per service. So I mentioned before that we do a time valuation exercise. This is just a very basic schematic here that we're considering direct costs, which are you can tie them right back to the adopted budget, and we're also considering indirect costs. And there's a couple different ways of looking at those, but the most important thing is that we get to a fully burdened cost per hour, and the way that we develop that for this study happens to be a composite rate. So it's not by individual staff person, it's by the activity of CRRD itself, okay? So might be a little bit small for the people in the audience, but these are the results or those blended rates, composite fully burdened rates by major functional activity of CRRD. So these are the results, and you can see here what the different categories of costs are that we've considered. We've considered labor, we've considered general operating expenses, titled here as recurring non-labor. We've looked at district-wide overhead, such as finance, HR, legal, and then overhead activities that happen inside of CRRD. So those are sort of the layer cake of costs associated with providing services. We come up with a blended cost per hour. And then from there, we take that blended cost per hour and we multiply it by the estimated or known time it takes to provide an individual service. And if there are any specific materials that need to be added to that fee, such as a specific sign or comes up every once in a while, then we also call that out and add it in specifically and make sure not to double count it. And that's how you get to a maximum fee amount. That's how we get to the outcomes that are in front of you this evening. I mentioned that we go through fee design exercises, and there are many ways that you can structure to charge fees. So most of the fees shown on Sac Metro Fire's fee schedule are flat fees, single fee, single service. But we also do talk about, whether we should do some fees which scale up and down based on a criteria, or whether it would be more appropriate to have a deposit for certain types of services. And we recognize that the maximum amount for any particular service may not be palatable for adoption at the full cost recovery level. And this arrow going up and down here sort of shows the main reasons we run across why something wouldn't be adopted at 100% full cost recovery, or maybe why it would. So I'm sure that some of these issues are included in staff's recommendations related to this study and probably on your minds and the public's minds this evening. And anytime we adopt a fee at less than cost recovery, then it's important to recognize that that subsidy comes from somewhere. It has to come from another revenue source. It can't be loaded on a customer that has a bigger ability to pay. For example, it has to come from the general fund or from another funding source if it's available. So we always like to throw this slide up here and just say, there's really no free lunch. It comes from somewhere, right? This is a summary table of results. So when we get down to it, we separated the services into three main categories. We have the sort of operational permit side of things, these routine annual or biannual inspections or California fire code permits that need to be issued. We have development plan review and inspection and miscellaneous. So what we found through the study is that currently your fee revenue is about 1.8 million. That's what you're bringing in. That was based on the last fiscal year. And the full cost of providing those services is roughly 4 million. So there's a pretty big gap between what you're currently collecting and what the full cost to the district is of providing that service. And that equates to about 45% cost recovery. And I'll tell you just from my experience over 10 to 12 years now, that's a typical outcome of a study. So there was nothing here that was completely shocking in that respect. Okay? So if the board tonight was to adopt all the fees in the study at 100% cost recovery, then we would be reducing the subsidy for those services by about 2.2 million, which is a significant number. And all this study does is just provide you with the information to realign these fees at full cost recovery or something less. So we're just here to defend that full cost recovery amount and help with the fee setting action related to that. So you see this column here that says annual estimated revenues at recommended fee. So that number is where the staff has taken much consideration into what the community can bear or what they recommend charging at this time. And so basically the recommendation is not $4 million for all services at full cost recovery. It's something more like 2.1, which brings the total cost recovery from 45% to 52%. So it's not a huge overall annual gain. It's a recalibration. And this is just sort of a breakdown of what those recommendations were once we went through them. So staff recommended cost recovery policy of 80% related to permits to operate. And the study addressed the issues of multi-permit occupancy fees. Mandated and required annual inspections were also a cost recovery policy on average of 80%. And for development plan check and construction inspection, we reviewed and enhanced the fee structure. That was probably the main focus of our efforts, was sort of bringing things up to industry standard and best practices in the way fees are charged. And there's not any recommended increases there for now. Probably we'll be revisiting those more in 2014. Miscellaneous user fees was mostly 100%. A lot of those are based on actual cost for specific types of incidents and scenarios that happen out there. So hopefully that wasn't too fast. Didn't run you through it too fast, and that's it.
I'd just like to add to that under the recommendation, where we're about $2 million short, if I'm explaining that right, of full cost recovery. That's a fire station and an engine company that's closed.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of puts the value on it. We have 6 of those that are closed at the moment in the district. And yet, as we looked at this, and as you'll see as we go forward, there's a significant amount of people that will actually see their fees go down in this. And then one last point is on the development fees, and that we're working on that, especially for new development. We'll be coming back with that sometime in mid-2014. It's a much more detailed study that we'll be bringing to you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Chief, I appreciate you ready, but I have one quick question. That was probably the best and most succinct explanation of this process I've ever heard in 15 years on this board. It was outstanding, and I wish we were smart enough to have captured it digitally and put it up on our website, because it was awesome. And so I hate to have you do it again. Could you step? No, I'm just kidding. But we need to capture that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of bright people out in the country that would get that and understand what we're doing. And we need to capture that stuff so that when people have questions about what process we went through to come up with this, we have the experts that can explain that, just like you did, because that was outstanding, to the point, very succinct. And from a mathematician, I'm just absolutely, stunned that it was so clear. So that's great.
And Director, what we can do with that is we video this. So I don't know why we couldn't just take that presentation with the PowerPoint, and we'll put it on the web so that people can download it and watch it for themselves.
I think you might have to ask permission from her, but I think that was so clear with those slides that really helped set the tone for this change from what the chief has already admitted to was kind of a debacle. I think we're really on our way to something much better, and so I'm happy to have heard that. Way to go, and thank you again, ma'am. That was outstanding. I'm assuming yours is going to be just as good, Chief.
No.
That's too
If I may,
But,
we've
one
been
more?
working with MBS on this project. Literally, we commissioned them to begin this project around July of last year. I feel very comfortable that the information that we put out there has no fluff. There's nothing out of the ordinary with it. We worked incredibly hard with Nicole to make sure that the numbers and the information that we were providing was as accurate as could possibly be. So we feel very comfortable with that piece of information that we provided. Now, for the next piece.
Wait, one more question on the last one.
Yes.
I was trying to get in. Explain to me, I didn't quite understand it. Right now, what we're collecting is roughly 900 some change, and we're going to reduce the fees, but we're going to collect $300,000 more from going from a self-inspection to sending somebody out and actually doing it. So how's that working where we're reducing the fee but collecting more?
Right. I think what we're going to see through the next presentation is where those fees change. So remember that when we're talking about reducing fees, sometimes we're talking about just a small reduction in fees. It's not every fee is going down $1,000. It's some fees are going down $20 or even in that kind of a area where other fees are going up. So what you're going to see in the next presentation basically is that the term is cost for services is going to be used a lot. So we went back from the year worth of information that we would receive from going out and conducting these inspections, being able to talk with the public, being able to see what the time is it's going to take and how these fees began to add up. And we realized that we were out of sync a little bit for that. So we went back and with this study, we broadened many of those categories and to add more fees to different size facilities and that. So it's more time spent is better captured in this. And I think that you're going to see that after this presentation, if you don't mind. Okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to have Supervisor and Inspector Lisa Barsdale is going to start with the next part of the presentation.
Board of Directors, I'm here to discuss the proposed revisions to the fire inspection programs and fee schedule. In today's discussion, we'll give a brief overview of our current fire inspection program, the proposed modifications, and the impact of those revisions to our business community. Currently, the district conducts an annual average of 6,000 fire inspections. Those consist of mandated inspections and required inspections. When we speak of mandated inspections, those are inspections mandated by the Health and Safety Code. They include facilities such as multifamily dwellings and schools and hospitals, which are considered a higher life hazard occupancy. Required inspections are the inspections that we conduct on an annual basis based off of our adopted inspection program. And the goal is to get into those businesses annually. The overall goals of the program are to reduce the risk of life and property loss from fire. We would like to keep the businesses in business. This is our opportunity to be proactive with the community through communication and education, to identify and correct any potential life and safety violations, and to educate the business and property owners in proper fire prevention practices. The Tuesday morning fire, which occurred November 7, 2011, was at the corner of Sunrise and Greenback in the Sunrise Marketplace. This fire resulted in $2 million of property damage. 2 businesses were destroyed, and the businesses in that general area were closed for the evening for fire operations. This fire was caused by combustibles too close to a water heater, which could have been prevented by a simple inspection and education with our business community. June 28, 2012, the district adopted a fire inspection program for all businesses throughout the district. We began the self-inspection program for qualifying businesses of 5,000 square foot or less. This was a 3-year rotational inspection program where 1 year the business would receive a full inspection by fire department personnel. The other 2 years they would complete a self-inspection form on their own and submit it to the district. We came up with an annual business inspection for all businesses 5,000 square foot or greater. After a year's worth of inspections, we did an annual program review. We took the feedback from the business community as well as Metro Fire personnel. We hired MBS, our outside consultant, to analyze our fees for the cost recovery methodology. Our key findings of the program review were that the businesses disliked the self-inspection program. When we did audit inspections of these businesses, there was significantly low compliance with the requirements. And in addition, after reviewing Nicole's fee analysis, we came up with more equitable fees based off the time spent to conduct the inspections. So our proposed revisions are to eliminate the self-inspection program and replace it with a biennial inspection program completed by the fire companies. So on an average, in a fiscal year, there will be 2,000 inspections assigned to our crews that would not be more than 50 per station per shift. The fees will increase and decrease based upon the time spent and the time required to complete the inspection process. The impact of the proposed fee schedule are that the cumulative fees for high hazard occupancies that require multiple permits will decrease. The overall fees for those businesses do decrease, and the fee calculations were reevaluated based on the time spent to conduct the inspections. Fees for places of assembly will decrease, also based off of the time spent for those inspections. This chart illustrates the revised fees for the commercial businesses up to 6 stories. You will see increases and decreases in these fees, again, based off the time spent. Our current fee schedule did not differentiate between a smaller business and one that's 100,000 square feet. So what you'll see is the 5,000 square foot business decrease over that 2-year period, where a 100,000 square foot building would increase based off of the time spent. This chart illustrates the new fee revision for multifamily residential. Currently, if you have an apartment unit or apartment buildings that have 31 units, they're billed at the same rate as someone who had 301 units. So we added a few more categories to make it more equitable, and again, based off the time we spent to conduct those inspections. This is a list of the community outreach that we've been performing over the last few months, in addition to the input we received over the last year. Chief Daniels is speaking to the City of Citrus Heights tonight. We've also spoke with the City of Rancho Cordova, several of our chambers, and over the last year, we were able to obtain 4,200 email addresses through our inspection programs. We've emailed notification of the fee changes, the modifications to the inspection programs, and we have also provided them with educational materials on what we will be looking for when we come out to do their inspections. Our next steps are to continue the public outreach and education through a newsletter sent to our business communities. The engine companies are currently conducting pre-inspections of the businesses on their list this year. They're handing out those checklists, and they're explaining any of the requirements that the business owners have questions with. We do have this information placed on our website. In addition to that, we are developing training videos for our crews as well as the public, which will be up on our website by the end of next week. And we'd like to show you a small clip of one of those videos.
If you don't mind, we have just a small clip to take just a minute or two to get through. We are doing everything that we can to do as much reach out as we can. We're using technology. This clip here was actually made by one of our fire captains, Jason Cahill. The voice is actually his wife. No matter how big we get as a fire department, we still have family involved in what we're trying to achieve. And then with technical assistance from Kim Angelo on this. So we have about 9 of these videos already prepared to go out onto the website. And these are instructional videos that we can give to the community out there so that they can be more fire safe. So there's a variety of different tactics that we're using, and this is just one of them, so we think it's pretty good.
The door into an electrical control panel room shall be marked with a plainly visible and legible sign stating electrical room. The area in front of the electrical panel will have a minimum of 30 inches of clear space at all times. Relocatable power taps shall be of the polarized or grounded type. That's one of these. The power tap must be equipped with overcurrent protection, NBUL listed. If used, they must be directly connected to a permanently installed receptacle and can't extend through walls and ceilings or under doors and floor coverings. Using multi-plug adapters, such as a cube adapter, unfused plug strips, or any other device is prohibited. If it doesn't have overcurrent protection and has multiple plugs, it can't be used, ever. Extension cords and flexible cords cannot be a substitute for permanent wiring. You can use an extension cord for something you are using temporarily, but you can't use one to reach a permanently placed electrical device. You can use a power tap with a longer cord, provided the device has been designed for this use and has been UL listed. Or you can install a permanent plug where it's needed. Open junction boxes and open wiring splices are prohibited. All switches and electrical outlets must have approved covers. Lastly, no combustible material can be stored in boiler rooms, mechanical rooms, or electrical equipment rooms.
Okay, so you can see that's just a short video on electrical. We have them from fire lane use to fire extinguishers. Like I said, I believe we have about 9 of them that are ready to go now. So, you know, we are working as hard as we can to improve our fire safety in our community. And I believe in the program that we have going right now. And I'll let Lisa finish up here when I bring this up.
As for the remainder of our next steps, we will return to before you on January 9th for a second opportunity for comment. And then if this is approved, the program changes would be implemented February 8th of this year, of 2014.
With that, before the questions are taken, I'd like to point out a couple things. This district laid off 50% of its fire prevention inspectors back in 2009. I think everybody remembers that. And the administration has been cut by almost 50%, and we have cut everything to the bone. And so at the end of the day, I take full responsibility that we did not do a good outreach the first time around. That is my fault. It's my responsibility. But I must say that the job that's been done this time with very little staff to try to do that outreach and be there, and you saw the amount of chambers and stuff that have to be there, and the community outreach groups, a lot of that has to be done not by an inspector going out and talking to them. It's got to be done by people that are either supervising inspectors or above in rank, because they want to talk to the people that are large and in charge in the department. It has been pretty extensive. But I want to point out that we're not done yet. We have other entities that we are currently going to be reaching out to, and we will continue to reach out to those entities throughout next year. So the videos, everything that we've put together, we've tried to make it less onerous as we can and more educational for the business owner, and we've tried to keep our fees reasonable. And with that, that concludes the presentation, and staff would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Director Scheidegger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank Mr. Cahill and Ms. Baxter for coming here tonight. I met with Ms. Baxter, I think, a couple of times, and we had some telephone conversations, and I did get her concerns, and I relayed them to the department, and I'm actually kind of proud of the direction that we're taking here. When this board passed the self-inspection program, we did it because we believe that an inspection program was critical, and we had other funding concerns, and we wanted to proceed with inspection programs based upon funding limitations the best way we could. Other jurisdictions, by the way, I believe have used the self-inspection program successfully. So it wasn't just a lark on our part. And I'm proud of the fact that at this point we've admitted, if you will, that perhaps that wasn't the best direction, and we're embarking on a new methodology to ensure that we continue a vital inspection program. So I'm proud of how we're doing this, and I wish you well in your continuing efforts. I guess one question that I have is January 9th enough time for us to complete this community outreach? And I hope that before you come back, whether it's January 9th or at a subsequent point, we have sufficiently met with our communities and to the greatest degree possible, alleviated the concerns that they've expressed, both in the past and here tonight. We don't want to be an adversary relationship. We value working together with you, and we want to continue that. And I think, again, this is a vital program. I thank you, staff, for your efforts to give us a good alternative, and I think we can continue in a successful way. Thank you.
If I may comment, the community outreach is never going to stop. Part of the process that we've enjoyed with this is we've been able to learn who the majority of our businesses are. Over the past years, we didn't really even know who was coming and going and what businesses that we had out there. So the community outreach with Chief Daniels and Community Risk Reduction, this is only the beginning of this process, but it's the Chief's desire that we're more involved with our businesses and more involved with our business community and making sure that they're able to remain in business and that they're successful into the future and fire safe. So this is only the beginning.
Another good byproduct of our learning in this process.
I had one question for you. I heard reference to the regulations mandating these inspections. And this proposal is for a biannual inspection. That meets our obligations?
The biannual inspection would be for small businesses, which are not mandated inspections. Those are required by our inspection programs, so there is no annual requirement for those inspections. We're not mandated to enter those businesses and inspect them annually.
And we did have proposals, President Orzali, from a couple of business people. They're not the prevalent ones that had a preference for that. They said, we just don't think you should inspect this at all. It's a waste of time. You can't afford to do it. We didn't think that was reasonable, but it's our requirements as a district that we get in and inspect them, not a state mandated requirement to do that. And that was a problem, as Mr. Cahill covered and Ms. Baxter brought out very effectively a year ago. We didn't do a good job of equating what mandated versus required was, and we took quite a beating for it, and rightfully so. So that is a spot-on question. The required inspections, we don't have to do them at all. But we as a district have chose to require those business inspections so that we can get in there, just like the fire that you saw, and try to eliminate those hazards. And our fire volume is going up. I'm going to work, I like Mr. Cahill's suggestion. I think we can break out some of those. I will tell you that overall, here's the news flash, our amount of fires continues to increase by about 3 to 4% a year of structure fires and wildland fires that we have. Contrary to popular belief in the media that the amount of fires is going down, that is not the case in this district. And then last but not least, in regards to the self-inspection program, it works very, very well in a lot of communities. It did not work well here. It did not suit the needs of our business community or come up with the required results that we would need to lower the risk of fires occurring. So though it works elsewhere, that doesn't mean that it's always going to work in our district, and that's part of, I know Director Scheidegger brought that up, that's part of the reasonability of us to adjust and adapt.
Okay.
If I can add on, if you don't mind, I'll add on that a little bit. But surprisingly, a building as large and with the kind of fire load in it, like Tuesday morning, was not part of our required. You know, Ms. Baxter's office is what we're kind of focusing on right now, the small office in the room. That also is something that we are now doing, but all the way up to the size of a Tuesday morning or many other of that size of larger commercial. You know, it's what, 20,000 square feet, larger commercial, but that building's fire also affected the hairdresser school next door and closed them down and made them move and had an economic loss to them. And that happens all over our district. One of the things to take into consideration is the apartment complexes and the inspections due there and the potential loss of life because your neighbor downstairs didn't take their Christmas tree out until July. You know, those sort of things, the loss of homes. And I've stood out there in the middle of the night with, you know, the other 20 people that had nothing to do with the fire. So we feel pretty good about the program that we're providing today. We feel good about the fees that we're looking at also. So thank you.
One other point, I'm very interested in measures and metrics, and I would hope, and knowing your background, I'm sure it's already in place. But we already have metrics on the fires that occur, are we expecting, logically, that this program, through its implementation, will see some reduction?
Prevention is a very difficult thing to measure, so it's really hard to make a determination on that. So we do know, I think Lisa has a statistic that 12% of our apartment complexes in our district last year had a fire in them. That's a pretty high number. Over an 8-year period, 7-year period, every one of our apartment complexes within our district has the potential to have had a fire in it. So those kinds of statistics we can come up with, they're pretty simple to come up with. Prevention is always a problem.
Understand. Thank you very much. With that, no further discussion. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move the item.
Second. I have a motion and a second from Director Jones and Director Wood. Would you...
Can we just be clear on exactly what the motion is this evening relative to this multi-tiered process so that we're clear for the public? What exactly are we doing tonight in this phase?
If I could address Director Gould's question.
Absolutely.
The board will be voting on whether to approve the staff recommendation to amend the fee ordinance and to introduce the ordinance set forth in the public record now at pages 54 through 56, I believe, as the amended ordinance, which will reflect those changes. It's then put out for public consumption and then voted upon for passage, official passage, final passage, I should say, at the next regular board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Lavra, in that regard, it's out tonight after our vote this evening for additional time for the public to communicate with our staff for any additional changes that we may need to make in the process. So this is not the end. This is just the first step in moving it forward so that we can continue to receive feedback from those that this fee these fees impact.
That is true. There's a period, actually the law requires that the ordinance be out for 5 days before it's then voted upon in a regular meeting, because your next regular meeting is until January 9th. That's the time that vote would take place. Between now and that time, the public and staff and yourself are able to take further information about the issues set forth tonight, and if there's a desire on behalf of the board or staff to make changes to that, then we'll have to see what those changes are and whether or not we need to go through the process again in amending the ordinance.
Right, and my assumption is that's where the arrow is that was described in that slide, where we have some flexibility based on the impacts that these fees would have. There was an arrow that had two ends on it, saying the policymakers have the right to move that back and forth based on the sensitivity of the department in this area. And so I think that we've got that almost full, at least 25 days or so to get that feedback from the public. So those that watch this know this is an opportunity to look at this and give us that feedback so that we can go back to our experts and our consultants and say, all right, what do we do? Or to our department, staff, and say, how do we adjust based on that feedback? And then we come back, it sounds like, and we finalize this and we move forward with its implementation.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Chair, I would like to restate that motion more appropriately then, if I may. I move that since we have conducted the public hearing, that we approve staff's recommendation to eliminate the small business self-inspection program and conducting fire inspections on commercial buildings under 5,000 square feet with trained fire personnel on a biennial basis, and Part B, by amending our fee schedule ordinance. And I move we adopt this first reading of said ordinance with a second scheduled reading for our next meeting in January.
Mr. President, one comment or question. With respect to Director Jones's comment about this being a public meeting, is this in compliance with the government code requirements for a separate public notice of a specific length of time and a separate public meeting allowing the public to come in and address the issue?
Council, if I can answer that, that's what this portion of this regular meeting is.
Okay, 'cause
Which has been duly noticed and published as
Because
required by
the
law.
government code requires a specific time limit for posting of that notice prior to a public hearing. I was just wondering if we are in compliance with that.
Yes.
Okay, my motion stands.
I have a motion. I have a second from Director Wood. Would you please call the roll?
Directors Monk,
I'm going to abstain.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Pearson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Moving on to item 2, tax assessment refunds. Chief Hinkie.
President Orzali, Board of Directors, this is an issue that came to the board's attention back in March and April of last year. And so I will cover it in somewhat detail into the record so that the citizens at home can hear it in its transparent form, and then they will be receiving a follow-up. This, what we're asking you tonight to do is to approve a resolution that would refund a tax levy, the Slough House tax levy, which was levied on homes that were not within the Slough House fire protection tax assessment area. On November 7, 2000, the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District, known as Metro Fire, electorate passed a special fire tax by more than a 2-to-1 margin. The purpose of this special fire tax is to provide stable supplementary funds for fire suppression services to Rancho Murrieta, Slough House area property owners. Management initiated a boundary review of the special fire tax assessment area. This review and subsequent work done shows a clerical error caused 3,841 parcels to be assessed $100 for each of the previous 4 fiscal years, when in fact they were not located within the assessment boundaries. As a result, the fiscal year 13-14 tax levy was lower compared to previous fiscal years because these properties were not assessed. We brought this to your attention previous to the budget being approved this year, and we asked you not to include these, that we were not going to include these assessments. So in essence, we stopped the bleeding at that point and corrected the issue on a go-forward basis. Then we spent the next several months making sure that we could quantify exactly what parcels were affected and how this occurred. Management is proposing to refund any affected property owner who paid this $100 assessment in any or all of these years. The proposal is to send each current property owner a letter offering to refund overpayments for the previous 4 fiscal years. Property owners will be asked to fill out a simple form requesting the refund by May 31st of 2014. Metro Fire's contractor, NBS, who is here tonight to answer any questions that you might have, will receive the refund forms, verify the special fire tax assessment was paid by the property owner, and that the property is in fact part of the 3,841 affected properties. Metro Fire's Finance Division will process all refunds. Refunds of $100 per parcel are due to the 3,841 parcels for each of the previous 4 fiscal years, from 2009-10 to 2012-13. In addition, the postage, mailing, and administration costs to process the refunds are about $11 per parcel. The maximum fiscal impact is $1,580,000, and funding will come from the operating reserves. The recommendation is to authorize the fire chief or his designee to refund amounts collected in error in 2009-10 to 2012-13 and incur the necessary cost to notify property owners and administer the refunds. This has been a long process. The mistake was made back in 2004, 2005. It was a clerical error. We submitted inappropriate confirmation of what the parcels were that should have been in the Slough House area, and that went to the county tax assessor. Some of those parcels at that time were large undeveloped acreage that had no houses on it. Once it occurred, the multiplying effect as subdivisions were built continued to build and build and build throughout the years. So when we hired NBS to come in and analyze all 210,000 parcels that we had in our district and take a look at where we're at, that's when we were able to confirm, and they brought to our attention that there was an error. And we have been working closely and informed Rancho Cordova City Council of this action since it occurs in their area. And we've also been working with some community leaders out there about this happening. And with that, I'd be happy to ask Tim Seufert if he'd like to add any additional comments to that. I'd be more than happy to hear him from the board.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty extensively. Really, this is due to the clerical mistake in 2004, and then that rapid growth in Anatolia and Sunridge Park primarily is what we're talking about. So the error's been caught, and the action is to be very proactive and to refund people and make it as painless as possible for folks, really. We're not asking for, notarized documents. We're not asking for copies of driver's licenses or paid bills or whatever. We're trying to make this as simple and as streamlined as possible. And so that's what our charge is to do, and that's what we intend on doing.
And again, I would just add that I think it's another example of this district being transparent. This mistake was made before most any of us were ever around. It was a simple clerical mistake, but this government agency, as soon as it was found, knew it was the right thing to do, was to get this opportunity back and get these refunds back into the people that paid them that should not have been assessed. And that's important to us, and I know important to the board of directors that we do that. And so the reason it's just taken a few months to get this, the last several months to get it off and running, is you only get one chance at this to get it right. And, if there are people that sold their residence and moved away, and if the current residence gets it and they didn't pay, but they give that to them and they contact us, we'll make good on it as well. The ability to actually go find people after the Great Recession that have moved all over the world would probably cost more than the tax assessment itself and investigators and that. So this is a good faith effort to make it happen, and we'll be in touch with the community if they have questions, and it's something that's very sensitive and we feel very strongly about, and we recommend the approval tonight.
I make the recommendation.
I'll second it.
I have a motion from Director Gould and a second from Director Scheidegger. But before we go forward with that, what we heard in the previous conversation was a discussion about clarity in our communication. This is going to be an example where clarity in the communication about who, to the people who overpaid, how they establish what they need to do to get their refund, and so that there's as the chief points out, there's going to be a lot of people who no longer live in those addresses. So some really careful thought needs to go into the communication piece so that people understand exactly what's happening and why and what they need to do. So.
And to answer that, President Orzali, you're spot on. We worked with legal counsel. We've worked with our public relations people on messaging so that it's concise. We worked with NBS. This thing has been ground through the meat grinder 6 ways to Sunday to make it as simple as possible to get that messaging out for them to understand. And we're gonna definitely make sure that we make that happen.
Great, thank you.
We have a very concise letter and a very simple form that would take somebody literally 1 minute to fill it out, most likely.
Director Wood?
What is it that you're going to do when you get that form? How are you going to verify that those payments were made by the person filling it out?
We have established a database of the property ownership for the 4 years that we're talking about refunding. And so we're going to separate the mailers. This is a little bit more detail maybe than you want, but the ones where the people have owned the property all 4 years, we're going to basically grease the skids and just refund it. If it's clear that those people owned it for 4 years, those go into a batch and they just get processed and they'll get their check within 30 to 60 days. The ones where maybe they owned it for 1 or 2 years, we're going to double check those and check the database. But again, we're going to try and be as easy as possible to make this happen. People are signing and basically saying under perjury, they're submitting this. So we're trying to make it easy, but also, as transparent as possible.
And that database is pulled from the county assessor's office?
Correct. Correct.
So with no further discussion, would you please call the roll?
Directors Monk? Aye. Wood?
Aye.
Scheidegger?
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Pearson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving then to item 3, Chief Holbrook.
I will be filling in for Chief Holbrook, who is ill tonight and unable to make it. Item 3 is the Assessment Engineers Report. Basically, as the board knows, we have been working on an engineered report in regards to a potential benefit assessment. We've been working on this for a very long time to get it into a final form. What we are asking you to do tonight is to simply approve us to have the final report completed, which they're estimating 90 days. We're hoping to get a draft at the end of January, actually, on that. And that final report is already in the current fiscal year budget to be completed and is budgeted for. And with that final engineer's report, then we would come back to this board of directors next year with a recommendation from the Stakeholders Committee, who has already recommended that we move forward in this regard unanimously. But on a formal basis, they will make that recommendation in late January, early February to the board of directors. So tonight, all you're doing is approving by resolution, which we need per the law for us to finish that final engineer's report.
Okay, thank you.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second from Director Gould and Director Wood. Please call the roll.
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Pearson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving on to item 4, employment of retired annuitant. Chief Wells.
Good evening, Directors. Mark Wells, Deputy Chief of Administration. Tonight, we have a request to, in the PREPA law, basically, when you have somebody who's retired, in order to bring them back into service, unless we need to come before the public in an open meeting to request that. And so tonight, for consideration, Debbie Kelly was our accounting supervisor employed with the district for 26 years. And she retired in September, the end of September. And in replace of her, we have very good staff, but collectively, that person has only been involved with the agency for, at the time of Debbie's retirement, she had only been here about 10 months. And then the person that filled in for her and the trickle down had only been here for about 10 months. The complexities of the CalPERS, the payroll systems, and a dynamic public agency such as ours, you can't take the lineage of 26 years and try to train somebody in 10 minutes and in order to have continuity of your operation. So what we're asking tonight is for consideration to retain Debbie's services over the next number of months in a limited capacity for mentoring and training in some of these other areas so that our continuity of operation as a district can continue and some of those questions can be asked in a timely manner. Looking 20 to 30 hours potentially per month, and we're asking down the road, this contract would be good until June 30th.
And Chief, what you're asking for is for us to sign a resolution that asks CalPERS to waive the exemption.
Correct.
That's the actual piece of it, is we've got to get the resolution asking for the exemption to be waived and then all the other stuff. I make a motion we adopt.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second from Director Gould and Director Wood. Would you please call the roll?
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Pearson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving then to item 5, election of board officers. Since President Kelly is not here, then we can go forward with the nomination of elected members for the board. We have comment?
Mr. Chair, I move yourself, Director Randy Orzali, to move from Vice President to President of the Board for next year.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. So, from
Quick, call the roll before he says no.
Yeah.
Questions? No?
Yeah. I have a motion from Director Jones and one from Director Wood. Was a second from Director Wood? All in favor?
Aye.
I mean, excuse me, if you just pull, yeah.
Nice try.
I forget.
Nice try, President.
Forget what, which one.
Trying to get fired
Yeah,
before
yeah,
you're
I'm
hired.
trying to we should rush this through.
Scheidegger or Zally?
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Pearson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. President, I'd like to move for the office of Vice President that we nominate Director Gould to that esteemed position.
Second.
About went deaf from the seconds.
Second, third, fourth.
And so I have a,
Quick, get him in there.
I don't.
I have a
I get my campaigns on.
Sorry.
motion from Director Scheidegger to move Director Gould to the seat of Vice President, and a second from and who did the second?
Pick one.
Yeah, pick one. Great. Would you please call the roll?
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Pearson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And further,
Mr. President, for the office of Secretary of the Board, I would like to nominate Director Pearson.
Second.
I have a motion and a second from Director Scheidegger and from Director Wood. Would you please call the roll?
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Pearson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving then to item 6. Nomination for Sacramento's LAFCO Special District Advisory Committee. Recommendations. So do we have comment?
If I could just give a quick background
Please.
for anyone interested. Several years ago, the special district representatives on the LAFCO Commission recommended to the LAFCO full board, full commission, that special districts establish an advisory committee to help inform the 2 special district members as well as the alternate member on any pertinent issues that LAFCO decisions might have upon their individual independent special districts. And as a result, we have a subcommittee who meets approximately 4 to 5 times a year on the 5th Tuesday of the month. It works out to about quarterly. We meet in the evenings from 7 to 9. We strive for a full representation of all types of special districts, and we have had fire districts, in addition to Metro, on the advisory committee. And so those are the duties and the requirements and basic outline of what the advisory committee does.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Absolutely.
Director Jones, is it true that since you're serving on the LAFCO that you can't also simultaneously serve on the subcommittee?
Well, actually, I am. The 2 special district commissioners and the alternate special district commissioner are automatically on the committee. And then we look for 14 additional special district board members to serve. It's not compensated at all. Just friendly camaraderie among special districts is your reward. So,
Well, if it's not compensated, you should go because you're rich.
Anyway, we don't need to nominate someone, but if someone has an interest, probably the anticipation is that we have a balanced representation on the board between parks and recreation districts, flood control districts, reclamation boards, water districts, fire districts, cemetery districts. So that is the gamut. We'd like to have representation of the full gamut.
I would just say that this is a pretty important arena at this point coming up, I would imagine, over the next year or 2 for LAFCO.
And what we would strive for, in past years, we have not been able to fill all of these 14 advisory positions. It is an excellent way to get to know other special districts, their needs, their perspectives, And it is a good networking, very good networking opportunity.
So then, that said, and you already sit on this committee. Are there other nominees?
Well, if nobody else wants to do it, I'll put my hat in if nobody else wants it.
All right, I have a motion nominating Director Monk. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. I have a motion and a second from Director Monk and Director Gould. All in favor?
I think we'll call the roll.
Yeah, I think we'll call a roll. I'm sorry.
Director,
That's why she's there.
Really? Oh, her?
She'll do that for you.
Thank you.
Directors Monk,
Okay.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Pearson. Motion passes.
Moving then to item 7, nominations to California Special District Association Board of Directors.
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate the director sitting to my left, Dave Pearson. I think he would, he's had a attempt at this before, and I think maybe this next time he could be very successful in having Metro Fire participate at this state level for California Special District Association. And I think we would all help and assist him in any way we could and encourage his participation, his nomination and hopefully participation in that organization.
Second.
I have a motion.
You want it? Okay, good.
No, don't ask him that.
Eventually, you gotta pick me.
I have a motion from Director Jones and a second from Director Wood. Please call the roll.
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger, Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Pearson. Motion passes.
Now, Chief, is this a juncture where we are going back into closed session?
We have one more action item, number 8, President, on the next page, and then I believe at that point, it would be your call on whether you want to do all the reports and stuff, and then we could go into closed session.
That would be my preference.
Okay, let's do that then, sir.
Looking at item 8, industrial disability retirement, Chief Wells.
Yes, good evening again. After discussion in closed session, it'd be to consider adopting a resolution finding that firefighter Doug Bynes suffered a job-related injury and direct staff to continue working with firefighter Bynes through his industrial disability retirement process with CalPERS.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second from Director Gould and Director Wood. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Pearson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving then to the presentation item, seeing that President Kelly is not here, we will move on to the Chief's report.
President Orzali, Board of Directors, we continue to work with the Cal Metro Chiefs and Cal Chiefs. I attended a meeting with the Director of Cal OSHA down in Oakland and their staff in trying to come up with a format for complaint processing of workplace injuries, which has had a great effect on the fire service, where fire service agencies are not recognizing that somebody painting their house or mowing a lawn, we work on them. We don't know their employer, we think, or employee, we think they're a homeowner. We're being cited up and down the state for not reporting those as workable injuries. Cal OSHA has been very, very good in this. We think we have 6 deal points that we put together in a meeting that lasted about 2 or 3 hours a couple weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to moving forward on that, which will be a big move for the fire service. Also, the State Threat Assessment System Advisory Board, I was appointed to that by the director of Cal OES. I attended that meeting. Also, we met with the Sacramento County Grand Jury. Had two individuals that were sent to discuss some policies and procedures with us. They were extremely happy with our answers and satisfied, and we invited them to come back for a full comprehensive tour of our dispatch center and everything else at their convenience. As you all know, we do that about once a year for them, and we hope that they will return this year. Also attended the local 522 holiday celebration this last week, Rancho Cordova 2x2 meeting, and the League of California Cities. Also upcoming, we have Sac County Fire Chiefs meeting and a retirement luncheon for CAL FIRE Unit Chief Kelly Keenan, who's out of the Amador El Dorado Ranger Unit, is retiring. It's a huge vacuum that is occurring across the state in the Chief Officer Corps, not just with local government, but also with CAL FIRE, and he's been a great ally. Save the following dates. January 11, 2014 is the Pig Bowl Crab and Shrimp Feed. January 25th, 2014 is the Gun and Hoses football game. I hope to see many of you out there that I've seen in the past. That is always a great event. We slipped a little bit last year, but we'll get back at it and hopefully win this year. Retirements, firefighter Larry Aranez, 25 years of service. Engineer Chris Anaya, 24 years of service. Captain Dale Angelo, 29 years of service. Captain Curtis Gray, 25 years of service. Captain Craig Tonin, 27 years of service. Recruitment, firefighter, paramedic, promotional opportunity, internal only. 23 single-role paramedics. Our new program successfully completed the oral interview examination process to firefighter paramedic and will be eligible to participate in our next fire academy scheduled for March 2014. So what that means in short is we started our process in March of the single-role paramedic program, and we are moving 23 of those people in as full-time employees into the fire department. I think that's a big success, much earlier than the 3-year mark, and that will open the door for another 23 employees coming in at the bottom. And then we had a 2013 supervising fire inspector eligibility list. We congratulate everybody that made it on that. And last but not least, to the board of directors, to staff, and to the men and women that are out there, whether they're working in logistics or secretaries or office techs or you name it, or our firefighters out on line, I wish everybody an absolutely happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a great New Year. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Operations report.
Operations report.
Good evening, Board of Directors. Mr. President, congratulations on your nomination. Chief Hinkie, my name is Darren Taylor. I'm an Assistant Chief of Operations for Metro Fire. I'm standing in tonight for Deputy Chief Holbrook, who, as you have heard, is under the weather. It's been a long month. It's been a very busy month for the crews on the line lately. Since our last board meeting, we've had 27 working structure fires. As you've been seeing over the news, there has been a rash of fires that have started from homeowners emptying their ashes from a fireplace into their garbage cans, which we go through every year. We'll be doing some outreach, I'm sure, through the website and just through the crews talking to the public regarding about discarding their ashes into the garbage cans. The crews have all done an outstanding job. I think it's known that most of us listen to all their structure fires, and they've gotten very quick knocks on these fires because they're on the exterior of the house and we're preventing them from getting in to the inside of the house. So very good job to the crews. Metro Fire's had 5,106 dispatches for EMS calls with a transport rate of 74%. Our partners in the EMS division, or in EMS, AMR, they've had 24 dispatches with a transport rate of 66%. One of the other notes that I think, because the public just seems to really enjoy seeing these stories on the news, which has been a positive for Metro Fire, is if you can remember back in the month of June, we adopted a pet mask program. And because of the success rate of the pet mask program, we've actually had 2 successful saves of homeowners' pets. We've actually got the animals to a 24-hour emergency veterinarian while on the pet masks. So those were successful, and of course they were all over the news, and the public really does love that. So if you have no further questions, I hope everyone has a great evening, and as Chief Hinkie said, I hope everyone has a very nice holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. General Counsel.
Yes, all I'd like to say is happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year, and to congratulate the newly elected officers of this board, and that I look forward to working with you in the upcoming year. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. Moving then to Firefighters Local 522. Do we have a representative? Nope. So moving right along. Committee and delegate reports. The Executive Committee, since President Kelly's not here, we'll move then to the Communications JPA.
Sir, we have no report. Our next meeting is next Thursday.
Thank you. Moving then to the California Fire and Rescue Training JPA. Again, we don't have a report. The Finance Committee with Director Scheidegger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do mean Mr. President. The next exciting chapter in the Finance and Audit Committee will be written on January 9th, right here, at 5 o'clock. That's it.
Thank you. And the Policy Committee with Director Pearson.
Yeah, we tentatively have one scheduled for the second meeting in January to go over board policies and start reviewing those. Those are kind of outdated and need a complete review.
Thank you. So, board members' questions and comments? Do we want to?
You want to go to closed session and then let
We
them
might
go
just
home?
as well go to closed session and we can take care of that. So, so with that, we will adjourn to closed session.
How do you know they don't want to hear our comments?
Oh, I know.
Are you now Scheidegger or is Ally since you're president? That's what I want to know. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
You're welcome, yes.
Thank you.
9 o'clock.
Yeah, he's got to in January.
Operation.
Coming back into the open session and going to board members' questions and comments.
Director
Oh, I'm
Rosali.
sorry, legal counsel, please, we need you to report out.
Yes, thank you. Otherwise, we'll forget it maybe. The board met in closed session per the agenda to consider an employee personnel discipline issue and an employee evaluation for the fire chief. In each case, no action was taken.
Thank you. And moving then to board members' questions and comments. We can start on this side.
I want to say congratulations
Sure,
to,
go ahead, please.
congratulations on those people that have retired or been promoted. And very quickly, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all that stuff to everybody in the district.
Thank you, Director Wood.
I just want to say, Chief, I appreciate all the work that you and your office have done on the Slough House assessment. I live in Sunridge Park. I've lived there since November of '08, and I've always said that I'd pay more, and so I'll go on record now and tell you guys, save the stamp, don't send me the form. I'm going to shred it anyways. But It's great that the district's not just doing the legal thing, but the right thing, and living by integrity, which is one of our core values that we have. And it's good to see that, and I wish more people from the public that take such a negative view of things would see some of the good that we do on a daily basis and how hard we work to live by our values. So thank you, and a Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you. Director Scheidegger.
Thank you. Just two quick areas I'd like to comment on. One, the life-saving awards. I just think it's terrific to see our citizens step up. It takes a lot of valor to do that, and I really appreciate their efforts. Secondly, again, the fire inspection program, I don't think we failed. I think we went down a road trying to implement something that was going to be an improvement in a program that lay dormant, and I respect how we did the hard job, did the appropriate assessments of it, and came out with a better product. So I thank you for that. Finally, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Director Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd first like to thank our past president now, Matt Kelly, for a fine job that he did over the last year. He did quite a good job, and I'm appreciative of his efforts. This evening, we saw Mr. Doug Smith receive a life-saving accommodation, and if any of you have ever been on a situation like that, it was obviously very traumatic for Mr. Smith, and I'd just like to tell him directly that if he feels like he needs to talk to somebody, our agency goes through these experiences repeatedly all the time. We have a chaplaincy, and we have experts that can help you deal with the traumatic nature of that event. And so I saw him struggle just a bit as he recalled that experience, and those feelings don't go away until you get professional help or you at least seek that out. And Metro Fire has it, and I'm sure it's available to Mr. Smith should he need it. But thank you for all of those folks that did that work. And as my colleagues have said, and I would say to all of them, happy holidays and Merry Christmas. And thank you very much for all the hard work that you all do. We've heard repeatedly over the last several weeks just all of the things that Metro Fire is doing. And it's just awe-inspiring to see this agency do what it does. And anyway, be safe while you're on shift this week. And next week, there are crazy people out there during the holidays that do really stupid things, and there's no sense on getting hurt. But Merry Christmas, Chief Wells.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Director Jones.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank the Chief and Metro Fire for their participation and support at the Dick Crooks Memorial. It was very well attended, and very appropriately so, so thank you for the support on that. Also, additionally, for the Dean Baker Crab Feed, it was a great success, and thank you to all the men and women in the fire service and the fire family who helped make that such a great success. And thank you to to Chief, senior staff, as well as 522 and building trades. There's been a lot of outreach and social networking here with the holiday period. And it's just a good thing to be able to get out, meet people face to face, outside of an office situation, outside of a board meeting, and get to know people, exchange ideas, perspectives. It's just a great networking opportunity. So I want to thank all those organizations and the Chief for making those social networking opportunities available to all of us. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and celebrate the solstice.
Thank you. Director Pearson.
Well, first off, ditto to what everyone else said. And then also I wanted to thank 522, attended their open house the other day. It was really nice, well attended. It was an enjoyable event. And I thank the staff for all their hard work as far as putting together the rebate. And I know we're going to have quite a bit more work going on with that as far as, and that was, I think Director Wood said it, but that shows a lot of integrity, I think, for the organization as a whole, that we recognize the problem, we own up to it, and we take care of it, and that says a lot. And again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and that's it.
Thank you. In closing, I would like to take a moment to express my appreciation to Ms. Baxter and Mr. Cahill for taking their time to come down here this evening. I know this is an issue that is important to the community and one that we're generally trying to put on the right track. Additionally, I want to thank City Councilman Alan Warren for his time in meeting with the chief and I today on a project that is important to the community and to me personally in moving forward with helping to find pathways, career pathways that would bring more underserved youth into the fire service and public safety careers. Councilman Warren was very enthusiastic and supportive and asked us to move forward with his full cooperation, and I want him to know I appreciate the time. With that said, thank you very much. Merry Christmas, and we're adjourned.
Okay, guys.